Hello? Can you, it's working? Yes. All right, I think we're ready to start. So, good afternoon, everyone. Happy to see you all today, and very excited to be discussing today on the use cases of aluminum recycling. This event is, of course, organized by EGA in cooperation with WGEO. So what we'll be doing today is basically firstly starting off with a presentation on the results of the study that was done earlier this year regarding the recycling of aluminum cans, followed by a panel event with followed by a panel event with 5 members. Just to firstly maybe introduce who will be discussing today, we have Thierry Desenclos, from the CEO of UAE Veolia, Rania Taye, Senior Manager from EGA for CSR, Ibrahim Al-Ali, Strategic Planning and Policies Department from Tadweer, Martin Laberton, European Aluminium, and David van Hoversien, Director, Every Can Counts Program. So we will have these 5 panelists coming on stage right after the presentation of Jonas, our project manager, who was in the lead of the project. Before we get to the presentation, we'll start just with a quick video on the Every Can Counts program to give a bit of an introduction to the topic.
Talking over there, trying not to stare, but you like what you see. Better listen up, we about to make it happen. So hot, we burn it up. We just can't get enough. Get down now, have some fun, 'cause we about to make it happen. To make it happen. We're about to make it happen. We're about.
Jonas, please. Yeah, presentation.
Just put it down. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Filippo, for the introduction. Maybe just before we start the panel discussion with our guests, I want to spend maybe 10 minutes speaking about the specific use case of aluminum cans. And just to set the scene, why are we talking about cans? Maybe just some key numbers. Today, in 2020, can consumption around the world was around 420 billion cans. So this is a major sustainability topic, as that corresponds to 5 to 6 million tons of aluminum that is that's present in those cans, and if they are not properly recycled, could lead to up to 40 million tons of CO2 emissions. Furthermore, the can consumption is expected to increase because aluminum cans are a good container for drinks, and general consumer spending is going up. So we expect by 2030 that can consumption will increase up to 630 billion, and the material contained up to 8 to 9 million tons of aluminum, corresponding to 60 million tons of CO2, just to set the scene why this is an important topic for us to address today. And then maybe to introduce also the work we've been doing together with EGA, Roland Berger, but also the International Aluminium Association and some of its members. The last months we have done a a deep dive on aluminum can consumption and recycling practices in 6 countries around Asia and Pacific that are listed over there. Why we've selected those 6 countries? They are countries where we see an increased consumption due to an increased consumer spending, but we also see in those countries a strong drive both from the public and the private sector to improve the recycling and the way cans are being collected and consumed. As you can see also on the left, it's also a global problem. There is a lot of import and export of can scrap between the different countries, and that's one of the topics I'll be talking to you about in the next few minutes. Before we start the debates, I want to share with you some of the key learnings from this study, and one of the key ideas that we wanted to bring today is that we can look at the way waste is collected and managed around the world. We can roughly identify 3 main types of handling aluminum cans. The first one are what we call the infrastructure light systems. We find them often in countries with a lower GDP per capita, where a significant amount of people work as street pickers and will actually collect cans and sell them on to junk shops for income or to supplement their income. Because cans are actually one of the most valuable waste that you can find in household waste, in these countries we report quite high recovery and recycling rates, although there are some more improvement levers which we will discuss right after. Then I'll jump to the right side of the slide, where we look into what we call infrastructure-heavy systems. We find them, for example, in Europe, in Australia, Japan, Korea. Those countries, what you typically find is a lot of infrastructure through systems, processes, and tools, collect aluminum cans. Those countries also report fairly good recovery rates. And then there is a whole group of other countries where we see actually today a lot of action being taken because the infrastructure, those countries aim to be infrastructure heavy. They aim to really build the full ecosystem. And those are the countries such as in the UAE where we see a lot of actions, a lot of investment into sorting at the source, and also recycling infrastructure. To maybe make it one notch more concrete, so if we look at the different systems, so just on the left, the infrastructure light system, so that's where we find the waste pickers, we find those junk shops, and we find an elaborate trade of aluminum cans. The cans are being passed on from the trader to the junk shop to another level of junk shop, and there's a whole trade actually being set up. One of the areas of improvement in those countries we'll be discussing in a moment is going to be on the recycling side, where we often find what we call downcycling. Cans are not necessarily recycled back into cans. They are being recycled into other types of other aluminum use cases. And also the recycling process is not always environmentally friendly in those countries. Finally, there we also often miss still the regulations such as EPR or DRS to really help the collection as much as possible. Then again, I'm going to take you to the right of the slide on the infrastructure-heavy countries, Europe, Australia, Japan, Korea. What we there observe is there is often a lot of sorting at the source, so people will sort cans in their homes, in their workplace, in the shopping mall. However, it's very often imperfect, and we find points of improvement to really make sure that every can is being collected. Secondly, when it comes to sorting infrastructure, cans can be sorted out quite well out of the waste stream because of their properties. However, there are often still opportunities to automate sorting further and to improve that process further. Furthermore, in those countries, we often have EPR regulation imposing quantitative, so numbered targets on the number of cans being recycled. What's not always the case, there is not always a qualitative recycling target, so aiming for can-to-can recycling. And then finally, again, in the middle, we have the countries really investing, establishing source separation, establishing sorting infrastructure, investing heavily in sorting infrastructure, such as the case of the UAE, ensuring there is a recycling infrastructure to actually recycle the cans, and also ensuring there is an EPR being put in place. And I think, again, here the UAE is an example where we see action on all those areas, and I think Rania will be able to provide more details on that in the panel. Where do we see the future? Actually, if we look globally at aluminium can recycling, countries can aim for two sort of models. If they go for the infrastructure light model, the reference case could be, for example, Brazil, reporting very high collection rates and high circularity rates, so can-to-can recycling. And in the case of our study, we're looking at Vietnam, Cambodia, or Thailand. They could look to Brazil. What concretely they can invest is in improving the lives of those waste pickers. They can invest in providing basic sorting infrastructures to help those waste pickers perform their job even better. And there is a need in those countries for investment in the recycling infrastructure to make sure that it is done as ecologically friendly as possible. Furthermore, in most of those countries, there are initiatives to establish an EPR. They need to further mature. Again, taking you to the right of the slide, the infrastructure-heavy systems. As I mentioned, Korea, Australia, they can look to sort of some of the best-in-class countries in this area, such as Estonia, Germany, Finland, reporting very high recovery rates and also recycling, can-to-can recycling performance. Concretely, they can work on topics such as really implementing source separation on every waste stream, making sure no can gets lost along the way. There are some areas of additional investment in sorting infrastructure, and then the EPR and DRS can either be a little bit improved, or you can look at establishing those qualitative targets to really go for can-to-can recycling, not just count the number of cans recovered, but also count the number of cans being recycled back into cans. And then again, as I already mentioned, the countries that are transitioning, they can also aim for this infrastructure-heavy model by continuing to invest in source separation, by continuing to invest in sorting facilities, by continuing the ongoing efforts on EPR regulation, and by ensuring that the cans are actually being shipped to a proper recycling plant. Furthermore, as I already mentioned, there's a lot of global trade going on, so also important to look at transparency of international trade flow and raising awareness. And maybe before I give the hand to the panelists, what the aluminium industry is committed to do is to take action, but you need to take action across the value chain, across all the actors from can production to waste management to recycling. The aluminium industry is taking action directly, running pilots, investing in infrastructure, running awareness campaign, but there are also coalitions being formed to really bring together the different actors across the value chain and advocate for action to be taken across the other players of the value chain. Those are a bit the key messages wanted to share to bring our minds together, and then I'd like Filippo to come back and take the lead from here.
Hello, hello. Yeah, I think maybe Martin will go first. Okay. Maybe Rania, Thierry third. Then maybe Ibrahim and David. All right. Thank you. First, thank you very much. Great, very insightful presentation from Jonas, so thanks for that. So as part of the panel, what we'll be discussing today is basically getting into more details about the opportunities that aluminum recycling presents, some of the initiatives that are being taken, some of the policies that are required, what each of the entities that you represent are also doing. which will aim indeed to see how basically we can continue to improve the overall aluminum recycling rate as we move forward. Some of the topics will include how aluminum recycling can contribute to decarbonization. What are some of the technologies, policy measures that we want to put in place? So maybe starting firstly with you, Martin, representing the European Aluminum Association. You recently published the Circular Aluminum Strategy, which mentions that aluminum has the potential to basically have full circularity by 2030. From your perspective, what does aluminum have in terms of, let's say, advantages to make it such a highly recyclable material, and what do you see as kind of key developments that will enable this over the next decade?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Many thanks for having invited me for this panel. First, I will always refer to aluminium, and not aluminum. That's our brothers and sisters across the Atlantic in the US. So for us, it's aluminium. Aluminium is what we call a permanent material, and this we have in common with metals, and by the way, also with glass. What does that mean, a permanent material? It means actually that the atomic structure of aluminium does not change during the recycling process. You can recycle aluminium 10 times, 50 times, and still the atomic structure is the same. That's of course a huge advantage over other materials. I don't have to name them. Well, maybe I should name them once, plastics and paper. They don't have that advantage. That's probably the plastics industry now acting in between here. And on top we have a positive scrap value. And that makes the world literally go round, the aluminium world. So there's always an incentive to collect, separate and recycle aluminium. And that's another big advantage in my view. And yeah, that makes our material indeed potentially circular. I say deliberately potentially, because you still need to collect it. You still need to separate it. And preferably you would like to separate it by alloy, because then you can do product-to-product recycling. I mean, we try to stay in the material loop, and I think your colleague mentioned that. The cans, we can also use them for bicycle parts or for automotive parts, but a nice product-to-product cycle is of course can-to-can. And for that you have to do much more than today. You have to invest in very efficient collection and sorting systems. I hope that's already a first answer.
Indeed. And Rania, maybe from your side, representing of course EGA and one of the main aluminum producers worldwide, how do you see EGA basically taking this topic and especially from a customer perspective in terms of supporting your customers in their sustainability journey from the aluminum circularity and recycling perspective?
Thank you, Filippo. But before I address your question, I'd like to basically thank the World Green Economy Organization for hosting the EGA panel and the Aluminium Recycling Coalition members that are present with us today. When it comes to aluminium, we know very well that it plays a very important role in addressing a sustainable society. But the question that we have to ask ourselves today, how sustainably aluminium is made. So EGA has committed to contribute to a net zero, to become a net zero by 2050. And this aligns with the UAE also net zero initiative. And we do have basically a roadmap to do this. So we know very well that the demand for aluminium, and I think Martin, you agree with me, so this, the demand for aluminium will grow tremendously over the next few years, from 27 million tons to 57 million tons by 2040. So if we think about this growth in demand, we know for a fact that recycled aluminium will count for 60% by 2030, and to 70% by 2040. So if we think about that, EGA definitely wants to be at the heart of this. We want really to offer our customers aluminum made from recycled content, and this is a part of our decarbonization journey, and this is how we can demonstrate that EGA is basically embedding circularity in our sector. So talking about that as well, I believe the commitment from EGA as a primary producer is something it's becoming at the heart of what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rania. Thierry, from your side, representing, of course, Veolia and being one of the main waste management companies worldwide, I would say, but also here in the UAE, and implementing many, say, technologies, systems in order to encourage the circularity. From your perspective, what kind of technological advancements are you seeing that can support aluminum circularity, and how maybe is Veolia also putting these in place to support that?
So good afternoon all for this part. Yes, few topics on it. So first of all, I want to give four data concerning the recycling, because it have a huge impact in terms of decarbonizations. Just to have in mind, 1 ton of aluminium that you recycle will avoid 4 tons of bauxite coming in, will avoid a reduction of around 40 gigawatt of electricity, so a reduction of 95% of the electricity needed to produce aluminium. It's also avoid to produce 7 tons of CO2 per tons and 1 ton of water. So it's have a huge impact in terms of decarbonization, pushing the recyclation. So, but for that to be able to have the, I would say, a good success in terms of recycling, we need two things. First, to be able to have a good sorting and to take the sorting more in advance. And for that, we need to deploy some innovations, some new techniques to be able to improve the sorting, to improve the quality of the different ways that we could have after the sorting. It's one of the more important points. It's also important to, as I said, to do this sorting as soon as possible from the beginning. Don't wait to have a mix of every waste to do that. It's more difficult to recycle the plastic. So innovations, it's in terms of sorting, deploying some different techniques to have a better quality, to have a better quantity of sorting, but it's also to change the habits of people to be able to sort as soon as possible. The other topic in terms of innovation, it's also in terms of putting some training or pushing people to be trained for what will be the main impact for their actions in terms of sorting. So it's not only technical innovations, it's also human change in mind.
Thank you. Indeed, and I think talking indeed about let's say the enablers that are needed to make this possible. Ibrahim, as representing Tadweer, I would say one of the companies that's helping to change the landscape of waste management here in the region. From your perspective, what are some of the policy developments that you're seeing, and actually what are the policies that you think would make the biggest change to support the aluminum circularity here in this region?
If I conclude what my colleagues mentioned here, through the supply chain of the waste, so we have problem from the generation point. There is lack of sorting. We have those people that do not treat the waste properly, do not discard it properly, so there is lack of awareness. And then you tackle on the innovation side of it. that on the advanced technologies. So it's clear that the whole sector, not only the aluminum here, it needs a very integrated framework to make it successful. So whether we take it the financial instruments or the regulatory instrument or the solutions or the awareness of the people and the education. These four work together properly. Lack of any of these areas will impact the other one. Now, when it comes to the policies, of course, as you mentioned, this sector, and specifically here for the aluminum, we wouldn't have a successful story if the policies are not in place. The policies here, which are very relevant to the aluminum stream here, in UAE are tackled from two perspectives. One is the circular economy. So we do have the Circular Economy Council, which is led by the Ministry of Economy and all the other relevant authorities at the very high level. The policy was published by the ministry. I think 2 days back, Department of Economic Development in Abu Dhabi also, they published their own circular economy framework. Other emirates would have done the same. So from the circularity, there are certain mandates that would not only facilitate, but also, I mean, strongly enable and support the aluminum recycling. But more importantly, there are the main framework that applies to aluminum and other streams, which is the EPR. And you mentioned that in your presentation. So the EPR has started, led by the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. And the only challenge that we do face here, because of various reasons, that the duration is kind of more than what was expected. And the reason that there is always this dilemma, you know, between the environmental actions and the economic impact. So whether you do this effort, but it will cost you, or no, you want to facilitate and attract more investment, but on the cost of paying for the environment. That's why I think the ministry are wisely reviewing this timeline and the framework. And once in place, we believe that this will be one of the best examples of the circular economy in the waste sector.
Perfect. And indeed, maybe staying on the topic of policies for a moment, Martin, from your side and your experience of what you've seen in Europe, what do you see as some of the, say, the policy developments, the actions that have had most success in terms of, let's say, pushing towards these higher aluminum recycling rates?
Yeah, we have in Europe the famous packaging and packaging waste directive. It will now become a regulation, so it will be even more, I would say, obligatory to meet the recycling targets. Also, reuse targets are now in, and this forces member states to increase their recycling targets, mandatory recycling targets, and to also develop on what Ibrahim and Thierry said. You need incentives, governmental incentives. Otherwise, I mean, we are all human. We have our weak spots. If there is no kind of enforceability mechanism in place, not much will happen. And I'm looking also in the direction of our customers. Our customers are, in the end, the Coca-Colas and the Heinekens of this world. These guys have to design their products for recycling, and they have to be part of EPR systems. They have to pay because they put it on the market in the end. And the consumer is simply expecting from them that there is a solution offered. So it's very easy. Put your hands together, join an EPR system, you share the costs, and you make it efficient to collect and sort. And of course, you need the latest technology to sort. And if your products are well designed, it's possible to sort everything nicely. This is, I think, these are the key success factors for a successful recycling system. But we need legislation. It's maybe unusual for industry to say that, but I think we should insist on that. Yeah.
No, indeed, I think, legislation is indeed one of the key enablers, I would say, to this whole ecosystem. Another one that we touched upon is how do we raise awareness basically amongst the consumers to improve actually the collection. We saw the very interesting video at the beginning on the program, Every Can Counts, which operates, I think, in around 20 countries or so. David, from your perspective, being the director, how are you raising awareness? How are you influencing behavior to actually support basically the boosting of recycling rates for aluminum cans?
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And we've been mentioning a lot of aspects previously, legislation, framework, EPRs, but it all starts with the consumer. And I think the industry, the can makers and the aluminum suppliers, especially starting in Europe, 2008, they realized this, that if we don't approach the consumer, if we don't pass on the key messages about aluminum and really explaining to people that aluminum can is not a waste, it is a resource. It has energy built in, and if you don't put it in the recycling bin, then we can't collect it for recycling, so it doesn't get back. All our key messages and the Every Can Counts campaign and the success of it, I think, is really also, thanks to the partners and the supporting, the funding partners. But we also engage with festival organizers. We engage with drink brands. We engage with schools, universities, shopping malls, you name them, charities even. And the success of it and how we do it is really with fun, engaging tools. We have those backpacks that you can actually see here at the COP, since we also launched the program on this occasion in the UAE. I think there will be a lot of success. There's a tremendous amount of work to be done here. The challenge is huge, but I believe that things are moving very fast here, probably faster than in Europe. So I'm really confident that if all these actors are aligned here, we have a framework, we have collection, but it all starts with the consumer, as I said. If they don't realize that aluminum is a resource and something that should be placed in the right bin for recycling, then we are lost, even if the rest is aligned. So that's my pledge. Put your can in the recycling bin.
Thank you. And I'm going to send the mic back down all the way, so apologies for that. But I think because we're talking indeed about the consumer. I know that Every Can Count places a lot of focus on basically understanding consumer behavior and researching on how kind of the materials are perceived and so forth. Could you maybe explain a little bit more from your experience, kind of how aluminum cans are perceived, and basically what we can do to make consumers understand really the benefits, and indeed because aluminum cans have this very high potential of basically being fully circular, how we can make that kind of clear to the consumer so that we enhance that circularity.
Yes, that's an interesting question. Actually, we've been doing surveys, especially in Europe, with the consumers in all the countries where we active in, and indeed it's today 19 countries in Europe plus Brazil and now the UAE, so that's 21 to be precise, and we have plans to further expand in the world, especially next year. Those surveys, they mainly reveal that people do not know that cans are infinitely recyclable. They fully ignore it. They're sometimes surprised. And if you ask the consumers to rank, for example, plastic bottles, beverage cartons, the cans, and glass bottles, probably the beverage can would rank third after the plastic bottle, the beverage cartons, and glass would be certainly mentioned as the most sustainable drink packaging. So we believe at Everything Counts that the can should be first. It is lighter than other materials, it is more recyclable, and it has much more value. So this is what Everything Counts is also trying to address by passing on all these key messages. I want to mention also that Everything Counts is probably the only campaign that is addressing the consumer with the key messages of the whole industry. There is no such campaign even from other drink packaging. So yeah, we have a huge role in this. And the image of the can has to be improved.
All right. No, indeed, that I think the consumer awareness is really key. And let's say the next step in the value chain is, of course, how do we sort and collect these aluminum cans. So maybe Thierry, from your perspective, from basically how Veolia is looking into the whole value chain, can you maybe share some examples of collection processes, innovative kind of collection schemes that you guys are implementing, whether here in the region or also potentially further across the globe?
Yes, so I could give one example for the UAE, for example, where we put in place recap by Veolia that it's two things. First, it's a mobile app that we could put in your phone to be able to, for people requesting from making door-to-door to be able to collect plastics and to collect cans in the door-to-door. So it's one of the big things. We have currently more than, I would say, we are reaching 60,000 people using the apps for this part, and we are collecting. It started for a few 1 year and a half, I would say 2 years, and we are collecting around I will say 2,000 tons of plastics and around 200 tons of cans for this part. So it's not sufficient to that, but it's a start for this part, and it's very important because we try to have some incentive, having some rewards with the app, so people that is collecting, it's a door-to-door collection. They could use the app to have I will say an appointment for the collection, and there are some rewards depending to the quantity of plastics or quantity of the cans that you could recycle. So it's also a good point. We have also some installations of some rewinding machines, some deposit machine to be able to increase the collection of cans. That it's really important for this part. After, in other countries, so we are currently starting I will say the recycling of cans here in UAE with Veolia, but we have also some other activities because we can also collect aluminium coming not only from cans, but for example from vehicles. We have some contract with some vehicle providers to be able to collect aluminium in cans. We can collect also aluminium in electronic waste. And so it's also, we are in a different loop to be able to collect this, but to do that, it's really needed to have some strong relation between the customers and also the producers and also all the value chain of the cycle. And the best way to do that is also to have a closed loop, because if you collect something here sending to 10,000 kilometers, I'm not sure that finally the decarbonization will be very good. But it's really important for me to think as a closed loop and to find different way to collect aluminium and to recycle aluminium.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what's really powerful about this panel is really the kind of the cross value chain partnerships and collaboration that you can see here. And the last kind of area that I wanted to basically touch upon as part of this discussion is the kind of partnerships and initiatives that are required to continue boosting aluminum recycling. Maybe starting with Ibrahim from your side. What are some of the partnerships that Tadweer has put in place to tackle the aluminum recycling kind of problem? And maybe what potential do you see in terms of expansion of these partnerships that you have already in place?
So the question is raised by RB member, and the plan was done also by RB member here. So since the transformation from a government entity into a company, which took us almost now, is almost 1 year. So Tadweer had several approaches. One, to enable some sectors, and to upgrade some other sectors. And definitely these kind of transformation wouldn't happen easily without collaboration and partnership. But what Tadweer did, we had segmented the sectors and then established strong and close partnership and collaboration with the key player in each segment. So for example, we all talked today about the segregation, and the people do not perceive the right value of the aluminum, that to what extent can be recycled, for example, or about the technologies. So we have worked very closely with MOCA, the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, and the Environment Agency in Abu Dhabi on the awareness. So there were several campaigns throughout the year in Abu Dhabi to increase the level of awareness and what can be done with each stream of the waste and what is the best practice. Not only that, we have increased the number of recycling centers, community recycling centers, and the number will be increased up to 100, hopefully very soon. We have also distributed several reverse vending machines in collaboration with ADNOC, with EAD as well. When it comes to the partnership with the key players and the very top leaders in the sector, definitely we have established strong discussions with Veolia, of course, various ways, and many other companies, the leading companies in the sector. But more importantly, which I want to highlight here, since we discussed about the EPR and the enablers and everything, our partnership was to create the very strong platform to make the sector successful. That was not only by developing the EPR or introducing the EPR, for example, but also to put the enforcement in place. That's why we have worked with the Environment Agency in Abu Dhabi, that once all the policies, laws, regulation in place, then that's the role of the EAD, the regulatory authority, to strongly put in place the enforcement to make this aluminum recycling very successful journey.
Indeed. And from an EGA perspective, Rania, you mentioned how basically sustainability, circularity is kind of at the heart of the mission that EGA is pushing forward. Also from your side, you have a lot of key initiatives that have been put in place. For example, also the recently announced aluminum recycling facility. Can you tell us a little bit more about these initiatives, what's being kind of done from an EGA perspective, and what do you see as the key success factors to kind of advance as fast as possible in the UAE, and I would say also in the region from an aluminum recycling perspective?
I think, Filippo, your question has two parts. I think the first part, I'll be basically highlighting what EGA, along with other partners, was doing in supporting and driving more awareness around aluminium recycling in UAE and beyond. So I believe maybe you've learned about the formation of the Aluminium Recycling Coalition that EGA led. And we had basically the inauguration of the coalition that happened at the beginning of this year in January 2023. And it was basically inaugurated by the Minister of Economy, His Excellency Abdullah Bento, and the Minister of Climate Change. So if you see here in our room, among the panel, we have members already from the Aluminium Recycling Coalition. I want to thank Viola for joining us in this panel, and also Tadweer. But beyond that, we also have partnered with us in the panel. So part of the effort that the Aluminium Recycling Coalition led by EGA, we have also worked on a study in partnership with the International Aluminium Institute, and we have a representation among the audience from IAI with us today, and also with Crown. So the study basically focused on the circularity of aluminum cans in UAE and other countries. So that was very important for us because we wanted to understand basically the full cycle of aluminum cans in United Arab Emirates, And we wanted to understand where are the gaps and what we need to do about that as a coalition, as a collaborative effort with our partners. And the result of the study has been presented to the Circular Economy Council, and we're looking forward to more collaboration between the private sector and the public sector. So in addition to that, we have worked very closely with Every Can Count. And as David mentioned, ACC is in 21 countries, and I think the number 21 is in UAE. So we brought the program. It's a communication program. And I invite everyone among the audience to visit the Sustainability Pavilion at the entrance. So we have an activation for Every Can Count. And it will be good to also support and to kind of basically walk the talk rather than just talk about it. Beyond that, we also have a partnership with RECAP as well. So we're supporting the door-to-door collection, and we're also having another innovative solution that we are supporting with Nadira around smart bins in the neighboring community. So there are a lot of efforts that we are trying to do, but I believe the way I see it, it's this is the start of our effort. There's a lot to be done, I think, and I think we cannot do it alone. And I think we need to put a lot of effort in bringing more partners from the value chain to take a part in that. So this is the first part. On the second part, with regard to the success factor, I think, Martin, you highly highlighted the success factor for aluminum recycling and circularity of used beverage cans. But I think, from my point of view, if may I say that, investing in innovative technological innovation is so important, because by doing so, what you're doing, you're basically increasing the recovery rate from different sources of the sector. But in addition to that, definitely it's so crucial to have a supportive policies, as Martin mentioned. And I think, Martin, in Europe, you have a good experience in this exercise. And I hope in this MENA region, and GCC and UAE, this is something will come also shortly, as Tadwir mentioned. So I think those are very important. Awareness and education is a primary. And beyond that, I think this is something that we don't do in a very short period. This is something ongoing, and the discussion needs to keep moving between the private sector and the public sector on aluminium recycling. Thank you.
Wonderful. So with that, thank you very much to all the panel members. I think we had covered some very interesting topics. I would say, to understand kind of how the whole, how so many different things need to come together in order to make this whole aluminum recycling value chain work. I would say from the policies that are needed to the customer awareness that is needed, the very interesting initiatives and partnerships that are being done here in the region, but also what we can see happening in Europe that we can kind of take as examples for here in the UAE and the broader region as well. So I think it's very clear, kind of, indeed, as you said, Rania, the longevity that this journey needs to go on, and kind of the very clear direction that is required for it to succeed. So with that, unless there are any closing remarks from the panelists, I thank you very much in advance.
Yeah, I would add, it's the whole value chain which needs to work together. From the consumers, but also starting with the producers, with the brand owners, the retailers, and then you move on towards the waste management operators. And this should be supported by a kind of governmental framework. That is needed. So otherwise, if one of these elements is missing, we have a problem. But I think this was said by everybody.
Ibrahim?
So one very short note here as a final remark. As we are discussing the aluminum and all the other sectors, and you tackle the partnership, Tadwir will be launching today the first of its kind initiative, Waste to Zero. And as this year in COP28, we have the fully dedicated waste management pavilion for the first time in the COP history, and hopefully will continue, inshallah, every year. So the launching will be at 3 p.m. today, and I would like to invite every member here to be part of that launching. which we believe will revolutionize the sector of the waste management, not only in the region, but hopefully in the international level. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.